Good afternoon. My name is Stacy Alcorn. I own Layer Realty Partners. We are a residential real estate brokerage with offices throughout New England and Florida. Today, we're going to be covering this guide, a real estate agent's guide to selecting the right real estate brokerage. And this is a small booklet we put together in order to help guide agents in the right direction when first selecting a brokerage. The reason that we wrote this booklet is because oftentimes when agents first get into the real estate business, they start shopping for a brokerage simply based on what the commission split is. Well, what's interesting about our business is, first of all, the success rate of a real estate agent is very low. In fact, statistics say that 87% of people who get a real estate license are already out of the business 3 years later. And much of that is due to the fact that some real estate agents end up at a brokerage where they don't have the tools, training, or support they need to grow their business. So while of course compensation structure is important, it's not the most important piece to be searching for in your real estate business. What this program is not about, this is not a recruiting presentation as to why you should join Layer Realty. So we're not going to cover the tools or training or technology available at Layer. All we're going to focus on for the next 20 minutes are some of the things that you should be considering when selecting a brokerage. Let's dig in. So what does matter most when it comes to selecting a real estate company? To answer that will require that you understand what it takes to be a great real estate agent. Understanding what it takes to be great in real estate makes it easier to select the brokerage that will fit for you. The three most important resources that an agent must possess in order to really thrive in our business is a successful mindset combined with a burning desire to accomplish determined goals. 2, systems and daily direction. 3, access to knowledge and a willingness to ask and learn. Achievement is within reach with just these 3 simple tools. Again, that success mindset with a burning desire to accomplish, systems and daily direction, access to knowledge, and a willingness to ask and learn. What do great real estate brokerages possess? First, a great real estate brokerage possesses an agent team that understands the laws of success, along with a culture that fosters mindset management, thought leadership, a zeal for tapping into personal energy, utilizing gratitude, positivity, and intention setting. We cannot stress enough. Mindset management is going to be one of the most important goals of your business. It will determine your success in this business. So it's important to align with a brokerage that has incorporated mindset management into their daily tools, their culture, their training, their support systems. Next, great real estate brokerages possess classes, coaching, and clearly articulated programs designed to offer agents yearly, monthly, weekly, and transactional activities and systems in order to keep business flowing and growing consistently. There are ways to generate business quickly, such as lead services, but those are a band-aid. Your goal will be to align with a brokerage that offers you the yearly, monthly, weekly, and transactional activities and systems so that you begin to grow a flourishing business. And great real estate brokerages possess a well-trained and knowledgeable transactional, marketing, technology, and legal team that is easily accessible to you 7 days a week in order to answer questions as you have them throughout your career. This guide is a deep dive into all the areas that you need to evaluate in selecting a brokerage, but none are going to matter as much as the ones we just covered. Remember, as W. Clement Stone said, you are a product of your environment. So choose the environment that will best develop you toward your objective. So think about how you're going to select the environment that is going to feed your success as a real estate agent. So first, we're going to delve into some of the most important pieces to look for when it comes to selecting a brokerage. And at the end of this guide, we put together an easy list of things to ask when you're going on your interviews. So number one, you're going to want to ask the brokerage you're interviewing, how do you get help when you need it? This is truly important for newer agents. Who is available to help you and how quickly can they help you? So you'll want to find out how many support team members there are. Are all the support team members full-time? Are they real estate agents? Are you going to be expected to go depend on other real estate agents at the brokerage to answer your questions? Are the staff members that work there, are they local or are they overseas, like virtual assistants? How do you get in touch with them? And how quickly do they typically respond? In our business, it's really important that you have access to help quickly. Are the support team members trained in specific areas? In other words, are there marketing support team members versus legal support team members versus compliance support team members, or are they all one person? What are the hours of the support team members? Are they available on nights and weekends? Because that's when you'll really need them. What if there's a legal issue on a transaction? Who would you be contacting at this brokerage? Who should be contacted for marketing assistance or help writing a contractor offer? Who would be contacted if you needed help speaking to a client? Or who should be contacted for help getting a check or questions about bookkeeping? And who should be contacted for help on using office technology? Now, these all may seem like small areas of your business, but as I mentioned, the success rate of new real estate agents is not very positive. Statistics state that 87% of people who get a real estate license are already out of the business just 3 years later. And typically that is because there's great people, great real estate agents who just can't get the questions they need answered when they need them answered. So it's really important that you dig in as you're searching for your brokerage and ask these important questions about how you can access help 7 days a week. Next, you're going to want to ask about office resources. Are agents assigned desk space? If you do want desk space at the office, is there a cost or a desk fee associated with that? Is it possible to get a private or a shared office if you want it? And is there a cost to that? Are there multiple office locations? And if so, can you use those other offices? Or are you supposed to only use the one that you are affiliated with? Sometimes with the big franchise companies out there, it may seem that there's lots of local offices, but they're each independently owned, which means that you really don't have access to all of those locations. So you'll want to ask that question. How does an agent hook up to printers, conference room TVs, copy machines? Are there systems in place to help get you up and running in the office? And are agents able to use the office locations whenever they want for networking events or seminars and things like that? These are some important questions. Interestingly, I've owned real estate brokerages for more than 20 years. Typically, the agents that perform the highest, this is agents that are typically doing $10 million plus in real estate sales annually. Typically at our brokerage, those are the agents that come into the office regularly, meaning they have desk space, they show up every day, and they treat the real estate job as a corporate business. They come to work each day. So if that's a plan that you have for your business, that you're going to show up every single day, you'll want to dig in and find out what the resources are at that brokerage. Next, super important to ask, as you build your business, your goal is to start generating leads. you're going to go out and get new listings for your business. And one of the things that you'll want to ask is, as you start getting new listings for your business, somebody lists their home with you. If a call comes into the brokerage on that listing, who is the call going to? This is different at every brokerage. So for example, at some brokerages, it might be your listing, but if a call comes in, or an internet lead, for example, that lead is going to go to somebody else at the brokerage. It might go to somebody that is answering the phone, or what is called a floor time agent. At other companies, the lead goes direct to the agent. Any call that comes in on your listing goes directly to you. As well, there are some companies that they'll give the lead back to the agent, but there's a referral fee. So in other words, they say, hey, if a lead comes in at all, whether it's on your listing or somebody just calling off the street or coming in off the website, we'll send you the lead, but there's going to be an additional referral fee paid for that lead. So you'll want to find out from that brokerage that you're shopping, how are the leads handled specifically on your listings? Because one of the ways that you build your business as a real estate agent is you get listings, and you'll want to know what happens with those buyer leads that come in and people who inquire on those listings. In fact, most of those buyer leads end up not having an interest in the house that they've called on, but the goal is to turn them into a buyer for another property. So it's really important that you find out who those leads are going to. Next, let's talk about email privacy. One of the things agents don't even realize to ask often is, what are the protocols for email at the brokerage? This is an important one. Now, some companies absolutely require that you use their email service provider. So you can't use your own personal email at all. And the theory behind it with those brokerages is that for liability purposes, they want all email communications to come from their email servers. So if you're interviewing a brokerage, you'll want to ask, what are the email protocols? Number one, do you have to use a company email address, or do you have the option of using your own email, such as a Gmail account? That's number one. Now, if the company is requiring that you use their email provider, you should dig in and ask more questions, because number one, is the company monitoring those emails? What are the spam settings on those emails? So, for example, they might be monitoring to make sure that you're not receiving recruiting messages. And so it feels kind of big brotherish that somebody's actually reading your emails. So you'll want to find out, is anybody monitoring the emails if it is a company email service? Secondly, you'll want to find out that if down the road you decide you want to leave the brokerage, do you have the ability to download all of your past emails, or you leave and you now no longer have access to your email account? Third, you'll want to ask them. Some companies say you can only use our email service provider, and if you are doing a transaction and you use a private email, your own Gmail account, which many agents do, you're no longer covered by errors and omissions insurance in case of a potential lawsuit down the road. So there's lots of questions around that. Most importantly, you just want to be aware that prior to choosing a real estate brokerage, just ask what the protocols are and dig in a little bit. Find out, okay, if I have to use your email, how easy is it for me, for example, if I decide to leave the brokerage down the road, that I can get those emails back? And is anybody monitoring those emails? One of the things that's really important as well on the email front is you should ask that brokerage, if you do leave the brokerage, is somebody going to be emailing them still? So in a perfect world, what you would like is that when you leave the brokerage, that you continue working with the clients who already know, like, and trust you, and that the old brokerage is no longer marketing to that email account or email list that you've created. So just be careful on those emails, because it is possible some of the real estate brokerages require that you use their email, and then the data that comes in through that email account, such as your client leads, etc., that then becomes the property of that company. So you want to find out if that's the case and what happens with that information if you were to leave the brokerage down the road. Next, one thing that you'll want to look at prior to selecting a brokerage is what the contracts look like. So oftentimes real estate agents think, well, the listing contracts and the buyer contracts and all of the real estate required documentation is going to be the same, regardless of which brokerage I go with. And that is absolutely not the case. Every brokerage has their own required forms. Now, there are state mandated forms for every state. So the brokerage that you choose will have to have you complete the state mandated forms. Let's just say there's 4 or 5 forms required by law for your state. Like many states have the agency disclosure. Some states have a seller disclosure on listings. Anyways, each state's a little bit different, but every state has some required mandatory forms. Well, there are also times where brokerages add all kinds of extra forms to protect themselves from liability. So you'll want to take a look at what is a package. What does a package look like for a seller? So you could just simply ask the brokerage, give me a listing package. I would like to review what a package is going to look like if I'm listing a property. What are the mandatory forms that I must get signed? Same on the buy side transaction. When I'm working with a buyer, please give me a package of the forms that I'm going to be required to ask my clients to sign. And all you should do is review those. Make sure you're comfortable asking your clients to sign the documentation. Again, some of those forms are required by state laws, but oftentimes the brokerages can add additional papers on there, and you want to make sure that you're comfortable with any additional disclosures. For example, at one brokerage, the required documentation might be 5 or 6 page listing package, whereas another brokerage down the street, because they have all kinds of additional disclosures to protect themselves and their shareholders in the event of a lawsuit, they could have a 15-page listing package. So definitely important to review those and see what is mandatory when you list or buy a property, or working with a buyer or seller, I should say. Next, let's talk about listing and buyer commission rate. Some brokerages have a minimum commission that you must collect. That is just what their minimum is. So it's really important, if that's important to you, to find out what the minimum, for example, if you're listing a property, what is the minimum that you would have to charge, and same on the buyer side. So really important just to ask the question so you know before you join a brokerage what the answers are. Also, you'll want to ask, if you buy or sell your own real estate, meaning you decide to sell the house you live in, for example, what is the company going to take out of that commission? Do you get a break in the commission, or is it treated just like any other buyer or seller? Same as if you're an investor. Some agents are flipping real estate, for example. If that's you, find out what is the charge? Do you get any type of discount because you are representing yourself? In that same vein, some brokerages do not let the agent represent themselves on their own transactions. So important to ask, what are the rules if I buy or sell my own real estate, whether it's the house I live in or investment property? Next, this is an important one. Most real estate brokerages have vendor partners, mortgage, title, insurance, to name a few. It is important just to ask, what are the requirements around that? Is it cool if I go out and use my own vendor partners? I have a mortgage person or mortgage group that I typically work with a lot, or title partners. Just ask the question, how important is it that you work with the partners of that brokerage, or are you free to go out and work with whomever you feel comfortable with? Next is E&O insurance. Every brokerage has E&O insurance. You'll want to find out how E&O insurance works at that brokerage, especially if something happens and there's a lawsuit. Typically, there's a deductible that oftentimes an agent has to pay. In other words, if there's a lawsuit and the brokerage is sued, oftentimes the agent has to pay a deductible for that lawsuit. Could be $2,500, it could be $5,000. So all that you want to know when shopping for the real estate brokerage, by the way, this will hopefully never happen. Hopefully you'll never get sued on a transaction, but it can happen. So it's important just to ask, what happens? How does the E&O insurance work at this brokerage? Next, awards and recognition. Many real estate companies have annual award programs or monthly, weekly recognition, where they might do social media posts awarding top agents for production. I think it's a good idea for agents to ask how acknowledgements, awards, and recognition work at a company. Is there an annual awards program? Is that a free event? Can any agent from the brokerage attend it, or do you have to be an award recipient? These are some of the important things to ask. Also, as far as just monthly recognition, how often are top agent lists released to the company? And how are the acknowledgements or recognition calculated? Sometimes it's by production, sometimes it's by units closed, and sometimes it's by commissions earned. Ask if the company creates social media pieces to help the agent brag about any awards or recognition that they've received. And if there is an annual award program, ask, like, what are the minimums? What does it take to get an award? And oftentimes the brokerages have a list of what the production requirements are to hit an award status. Super, super, super important. Probably the most important piece of shopping for a brokerage. Read the independent contractor agreement. I always tell agents, by law, the brokerage has to have you sign an independent contractor agreement. This is required by law for a few reasons, but most importantly, the government asks that we get every agent to sign this agreement, mostly because the government wants to make sure that you know that you will be paying your own income taxes because you're self-employed, you're an independent contractor agreement. So that's the main purpose of this independent contractor agreement. But there's lots of stuff that can get squeezed into this contract that you will absolutely want to know about. Number one, you want to know, can you easily leave the brokerage if you find that it's just not a good fit for you? Great brokerages should let you leave at any time if you are unhappy and let you go try another brokerage. If you end up leaving, it's really important. In many states, a non-competition agreement is often not worth the paper it's written on, but it could be super intimidating. And I do know of brokerages in our marketplaces that send out a nasty letter when an agent leaves their brokerage, threatening to sue them, threatening to sue for all kinds of money because there's non-competition agreements, etc. So be super careful and just read the contract and ask the questions. As you're working with a team who's recruiting you to the brokerage, simply ask, is there a non-competition agreement at all in this contract? What are the terms if I leave in a year? Or what are the terms if I leave in 2 years? If I decide to leave the brokerage at any time in the future, am I going to owe any money for anything? Really important to ask. There are many great brokerages that have no terms like this in their contracts. So you want to work with a company that's not going to sue you if you end up trying to go try a different brokerage down the road. So you want to ask how easy it is to leave. Would you owe any money at all if you decided to leave? What happens with the customers in your database? Is the company going to still market to those people? Can you take your client list and your database with you if you decide to leave the brokerage? If you have transactions pending when you leave the brokerage, what happens on those? So of course you still have to pay the brokerage the commission that you would have paid the brokerage. So what that means is, say you have 3 transactions that are under agreement and you leave the brokerage, the expectation for most agents is that you'll get paid what you would have been paid if you still worked at the brokerage, but that is not always the case. Sometimes the contract specifically says if you leave, your commission split changes. So really important to read that. Again, if you have any existing listings, what happens if you leave the brokerage and you have active listings that are not under contract? And what happens with your client list and your database? And is anybody from that brokerage going to still continue to try to reach out to that database? Super important. One of the most important pieces to joining a real estate brokerage is really read the contract, ask the questions. You do not want to get stuck signing something that handcuffs you to a brokerage that you just don't know if you'll like for the long term. One of the things that you'll typically see in an independent contractor agreement is just a confidentiality clause. This is a tool that some brokerages use, just saying it makes it difficult so that if down the road you decide you want to leave the brokerage, there's sometimes a confidentiality clause which basically says, hey, you can't talk to anybody about what we have in our contract. So that's why it's so important to find out before you sign any contract. The best contracts have no handcuffs. So that means that you can leave at any time, that if you have transactions pending when you leave, that you will get paid on those transactions when they close, just as if you still worked there. Those are the best kind of contracts. Some other things to look for in the details or in the contract. Is realtor membership mandatory? Are there any other mandatory memberships? Are there any mandatory meetings or training, mandatory events? Seek out the word mandatory. You want to know, like, what does your contract absolutely require of you? And many of these are not bad things. Like, I believe in the realtor membership. So at our company, it is mandatory membership. But it's really important that you just know before you sign a contract, is there a mandatory meeting that you have to go to every month? Is there a mandatory technology fee, a mandatory something fee? Find out before you join a brokerage or sign a contract. Are there mandatory vendor partners, mandatory production minimums? So really go through, like, what are the mandatories of that brokerage? And then super important. So this is one of the reasons we wrote this booklet, is because oftentimes when agents are seeking a brokerage, they really just focus on the split. And definitely compensation is important. You want a fair compensation package, but it's absolutely not the most important. There's so many other pieces that are important. So like tools, training, technology, all of that stuff, like mindset management, all of that stuff is super important. The compensation is that you want to know that you're going to get paid fairly when you close transactions, but more importantly, you want to really focus on making sure you end up with a company that's going to help you. They're going to give you growth systems. They're going to coach you. They're going to give you training. And they're going to be super accessible so that when you have questions, you know where to find the answers. That's how you're going to build confidence and grow your business. So some of the things just to ask when it comes to the compensation structure is the compensation structure on all the same on all types of deals, like purchase, commercial, rental, referrals? Is there a franchise or marketing fee off the top, and how is that calculated? How does the compensation structure change over time? Some companies offer cap, some companies offer like a sliding scale. Does the brokerage have the ability to change the compensation model if the agent production goes down? So this is an important one, because sometimes brokerages offer this introductory introductory compensation structure, but then they have something in the contract that says, hey, if you don't meet this production standard in the first 12 months, we're going to change your split. You need to know about that. So find out if for any reason the compensation structure that you've been offered would change for the worse for any reason. Same as I mentioned under the contract, if you were to leave the brokerage and you have deals pending, does the split change at all? And can you practice other types of real estate? Just something to know. For example, some real estate brokerages only allow you to work in residential real estate. And if you do a commercial transaction, you have to refer that out to a commercial agent. So just a question to ask. And then in this little booklet, we just made like a little spreadsheet for you. And what we say is, like, when you're going through the compensation with the brokerage you're considering, tell them, like, okay, say I received a $10,000 check. Help me figure out what my actual check would be. What is my net commission, so that you can figure out what your effective split is. So this is just like a handy little worksheet for you to work off of. And then out-of-pocket expenses. Almost any brokerage you go to, you're going to have out-of-pocket expenses. So these are the ones I could think of off the top of my head. I think it's a good idea to go through all of these and ask, like, do I have to pay for business cards? Do I have to pay for desk fees? If I want a name badge, do I have to pay for it? Realtor membership, do I have to pay for it? Many of these are going to be yes, you pay for them, but every brokerage is a little bit different. There'll be a lot of these on here that many brokerages cover that for you. So some brokerages will cover, for example, business cards. Some brokerages have no desk fees. You can get a desk at the office and you're not paying for it. Others charge a desk fee. So just ask the question, like, what are the typical out-of-pocket expenses, so that you go into the transaction with your eyes wide open. So here's just at the end of this booklet, this is just an overview of everything that we just went through. So I'm not going to go through it all again. This is just a breakdown of all the questions to ask, so that when you're shopping brokerages, you have like a little checklist that you can just go down a list quickly. But those are the main things we wanted you to know. So I promised you this was not going to be a recruiting presentation for our brokerage. This was truly just to help you understand what to look for in any brokerage that you are interviewing. However, I want to leave you with some free tools. If you're watching this program or this guide, you're probably a newer agent. So I want to give you some free resources that you can take with you for your business. Number one, if you want to download this booklet, you can download it at Laer, L-A-E-R, realty.com/careers. If you go to that link, it'll take you to a little page about Laer, and you'll see a PDF download of this guide, a real estate agent's guide to selecting the right real estate brokerage. Number two, at Laer Realty, we do offer hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of free classes for real estate agents at any brokerage. So you do not have to be a member of our brokerage to attend all of the amazing training classes we have. Highly recommend that you subscribe to this station, our YouTube station, youtube.com/Laer training, so that you can get notifications when we add new training classes, which is literally every single week. So go participate in our training classes. Number three, if you're a newer agent, you'll want to have a growth system, like a system in place so that you know exactly what to focus on a yearly, monthly, weekly basis. And as you start focusing on these areas, you're going to get business. And then you'll want to start knowing what to focus on per transaction. So each time you have a seller appointment, a new listing, a new buyer, and we also focus on client appreciation events. We've built this one-of-a-kind system. We believe that there is an algorithm to success, meaning certain input will create a certain output in your business. We know this because we work with hundreds and hundreds of the best agents in the marketplace. So we developed this algorithm, or as we like to call it, an algor-win, to show other agents how successful real estate agents are growing their businesses. You can download this booklet for free. Just go to Laer Realty, L-A-E-R, realty.com/algorwin. That's ALGORWIN. It'll ask you a little questionnaire about yourself, but then you'll download our 100-page workbook on how to build a successful real estate business. This booklet is designed to get you to 30 transactions per year. And then last but certainly not least, please feel free to visit LaerAgentServices.com. That's L-A-E-R, agentservices.com. This is our agent dashboard, where we give away hundreds of free marketing pieces, listing presentations, buyer presentations, pre-listing packages, you name it. Go check out all the free stuff we have on there and utilize it to begin to build a very successful real estate career. With that, I want to wish you best of luck in finding the right brokerage for you. And as always, you can always reach out to us at laerrealty.com if we can ever be of service in helping you achieve your best life possible. Have a great day.